Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. I'm so glad you're with us wherever you are. If you're joining us here on television in Santa Barbara, California at TVSB, we welcome you, and we're so grateful to have so many of you from all over the world at goodlifetelevision.org, at the YouTube, the new YouTube channel page. There's also all the social media platforms, and now over the last few months we've just developed the podcast so that you can hear all the interviews on a podcast called Good Life Conversations. So we'd love to have you check that out. Any podcast platform, you can find it under Good Life Conversations. We're so grateful. We're grateful to have you every time. If you go to goodlifetelevision.org, you'll just see some incredible people, incredible stories, all walks of life, entrepreneurs and overcomers, public servants, nonprofit leaders, people with passion, people with stories. None of them are perfect, but it's been so great to just share these stories with you. And in addition to the full form interviews, you can also find what we call power clips at goodlifetelevision.org, so you can watch some of the kind of the shorter moments, some of the powerful moments from those interviews. So we're grateful to have you, and I'm so excited about my guest today. Janet Rowse is with me. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Janet has been involved in education in different capacities for many years. She was on the board of directors for Santa Barbara High School Education Foundation, was on advisory committee, and just kind of was an activist at some level in terms of education here where we live. And now she has since co-founded and is the executive director of SafeLaunch, which we're going to get into in a minute, which is a very exciting vision that Janet and others have put together to rally support for kids and families. And so we'll talk about that. But start with just kind of your upbringing and your background and your life. Where did you come from? Where were you raised?
I was raised in LA. I will say shout out to my mom, who's going to be 95 this month.
Wow.
Living in the house that I was raised in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, pretty exciting.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was really fortunate to be able to have a wonderful childhood and be the baby basically on a street full of returning World War II veteran families. And so I was dragged around in the wagon and probably was the dress-up doll and all those good things. And just really, taken care of. So I had all my needs really met. And then I came up here to go to UCSB, and lo and behold, I didn't want to go back to Los Angeles. So I found out a way to stay here. That was the restaurant industry. Yep. And down the road a few years, that's how I met my husband, Randy.
Okay, so how did the restaurant, and I failed to mention that, for 36 years, Janet and Randy Rouse owned and ran Paradise Cafe, which is a big deal here in Santa Barbara, California. But what was how did that start?
Paradise Cafe?
Yeah.
Randy had also gone to UCSB. He was a couple years ahead of me. And he also came from Los Angeles and decided that Santa Barbara was where he wanted to be. And so with a couple of other people, started Paradise Cafe after having worked in restaurants in town locally. Chuck's Steakhouse is one that some people might know about. He was there, and then they opened Paradise, and a couple of years, well, the summer after they opened is when I started working there, and that's how I met Randy. So I met him at work.
Really?
Yeah.
This is just like my parents' story. They met in a little restaurant. My dad was a waiter or a busboy, and my mom was a waitress at this little restaurant, and that's how they met. Interesting. Yeah. And so, 36 years. I don't know much, but I know enough about the restaurant business to know that it's one of the more difficult businesses, isn't it?
It is.
Was that your experience?
When you're doing something, you don't really know how hard it is. You're just doing it. And Randy was mostly the one doing all the work, and I was the support team, and the kids and I were doing our thing and eating as many hamburgers as we could.
That's so funny. And Randy, Janet's husband, is now the mayor of Santa Barbara, California, where we're sitting, which is funny. And did you envision that when you met him in the restaurant?
Not a clue. I don't think he had a clue either. But, we both just really care about the community. And he got involved in the downtown organization when he was involved with the restaurant. And so that just kind of became his passion. And then really fell in because it was an appointment to an opening on city council, and he took a seat there and then ran and won and ran and won, and then took a couple years off for retirement and COVID to hit, and then decided that, it was time to go back. So that's what he did.
That's so great. Well, it's been great. I've loved watching him. So talk about your interest in education before we get to SafeLaunch, but talk about kind of your, you raised kids here and you were involved. Talk about your passion for education.
Kind of like my background, where I was really lucky to be able to grow up when I did and where I did with the support. I was able to do that again with our kids. And so being able to stay home and then help out in the schools, and then I just got more and more involved, and I did a little bit of everything, and I did that for 16 years. And so I learned a lot about public education, and by the time our kids were getting out of school, I saw some gaps and some things that I thought that maybe I could help with.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of the genesis for the nonprofit organization for me.
Okay.
Yeah,
What was your experience?
My experience, and just, wanting, while our kids were in school, I was able to hopefully, fill any gaps that maybe needed to be filled by other parents who were working and couldn't be as involved in the school. So, we all do what we do.
Right.
And
do what
so,
we can.
yeah.
Right. So let's talk about SafeLaunch, and I was really fascinated just kind of reading about it. SafeLaunch, one word, SafeLaunch.org is where you can find them. The mission is to prevent adolescent exposure to alcohol and other drugs known to cause substance use disorder and addiction. And then I was just reading about them. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah. So I was reading kind of some of the statistics and some of the background of this, which I didn't know. When exposed to alcohol, nicotine, and other drugs, children are up to 6 times more vulnerable to the brain disease of addiction than adults. So the point, I think, here, based on what I've read in these statistics and this information, is that when kids start early, there's more damaging effects and consequences on their life.
Correct.
Talk about that.
It really is the focus of everything we do, because most people think that, this is just a choice, a bad choice that somebody might make, but it's so much more than that, because it's all about the human brain.
Right.
And it's the developing brain. And so if people don't know that vulnerability to the young brain, and that's up until it's fully developed, which is age 25, but the research has shown that if you don't use any substance before age 18, you're highly unlikely to ever have a problem with it. 21 is the drinking age, so we focus on 21 because that's consistent across the country, and that's what people are used to hearing. But if you don't use anything before 21, you're pretty safe. There are people that will develop a disorder after that, but the vast majority, 90% with a problem today, started before 18.
Is that right?
So our mission is to educate everybody, but in particular parents. So
Right.
each part of society has a role to play. Government has a role to play. Schools certainly have a role to play, and parents have a role to play.
Yeah.
And this notion that, you hear all the time, kids need to make a good choice, and people keep saying, make a good choice. But when your brain isn't fully developed and you're really wired to be social, that's really difficult.
Right.
And 100% of the time, are you really going to make a good choice? So everyone needs to surround our youth and know the science. So that's really what we're all about.
And teaching that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, everywhere you can. So I brought you a little book.
Yeah, thank you.
This is written by Dr. Robert DuPont, who is our most esteemed board member, and he was the first director of the National Institute on Drug Abuse, which is under the National Institutes of Health. And so he has done an entire life of research with himself and other doctors and his team. And this is a fabulous book called Chemical Slavery, so that's for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so basically anything that we talk about is in there, and anything that anybody needs to know about this is really in there.
Yeah.
He's written many books, hundreds of articles. He's an incredible man. And
Wow.
so the research comes largely out of that. And then they've recently developed, and we promote with them, this One Choice initiative, which is not a program, but it really is about education. So things people don't know are that the majority of kids actually don't use any substance at all. So youth drug use is not inevitable. People don't know about the brain, and they don't know that any drug that a child uses is basically a gateway drug. There's no one gateway
Right.
drug.
Right.
It doesn't matter. So the
Wow.
science is all there.
And that it's the developing brain. That is really interesting.
And I can't think of anything more important.
Yeah, yeah. How do I say this? There seems to me like there's becoming a almost like an aversion to addressing certain things like this, because it's just like kids are going to be kids. I heard somebody the other day, an actual friend of mine who's dealing with this in his own household, and his wife's perspective is she lets all the high schoolers drink in the house, right? Because her perspective is they're going to do it anyways. They might as well do it here where they're safe. And I kind of was like, let's go back to the first sentence. Why? Like, I don't know. Maybe I just don't get it. But it didn't seem like that when we were growing up necessarily, where it was like this inevitable thing. Like, they're going to tie their shoes in the morning, and they're going to smoke weed at night, and they're going to drink at the parties. Like, when did this become like something that we just have to like throw our hands up and go, well, you know what I'm saying?
I do. I think it's been kind of a slide.
Yeah.
I don't think it happened overnight, but the attitude has changed over the decades.
Yeah.
And mostly it's an adult attitude, because the kids, if you follow the science and follow the research and data, since I graduated from high school, drug use by youth has gone down. So adults are sending the message that, well, all kids are going to do it, but the facts don't support that. So it's
Interesting.
time for the adults to follow the youth.
Huh.
It's a great secret, isn't it?
So the percentages are actually going down.
Yeah.
What about drinking?
Yeah. The only thing that's really up is marijuana use or cannabis and vaping. So those are the two risky areas in terms of data, the current national data.
Yeah.
Those are, consistently right now kind of on a level where they're going to go over time, depending on what we do right now,
Yeah.
is
Right.
going to affect that. But alcohol use is actually down.
So is the message saying, look, here's the statistics on the developing brain. Before you're 21, 25, but let's say 21, this is a dangerous thing. Is it talking about it in terms of, we want you to know the science says that at this time in your life, this is a dangerous thing to do because it could result in this? Or how do you frame it?
Well, it's a health standard. So just like you're going to wear a seatbelt when you drive your car,
Right.
a helmet when you ride your bike. Not everybody's going to put on their seatbelt or wear a helmet, but that is still the health standard. That's still the goal. And the reason for doing it is your health.
Right.
What's more important to you than your health?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Right.
The older you get, the more obvious that becomes.
Right.
But when you're young,
Right.
it's, maybe not as clear to you, but that's our job as the adults. So one of the co-founders of SafeLaunch is a retired Navy pilot, and he landed on aircraft carriers 120 times in his career. And so when we started this, the analogy that what we really need to do is to create an aircraft carrier mentality for raising youth in all of our communities. So everyone on that aircraft carrier's mission is to make sure that those planes launch and recover safely. we need to do the same thing with our kids, and that's why the organization is called SafeLaunch. Launch safely into adulthood without any addiction.
Yeah. So go back to what you said. So you said it's a health standard. So you're talking about this in a way that this is standard. This is the best way.
Yeah. No use until 21 is a health
No use
standard.
until 21.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a revolutionary thing to say right now.
But it's not revolutionary.
Right.
It's something people don't talk about, so we're talking about it.
Yeah.
And so to jump into the SafeLaunch activities, one of the things we do, excuse me, we just had our 60th aviation event, and so that co-founder with his Navy background volunteers his aircraft and his time and his skill, and we fly to aviation events. Just did the 60th one last weekend in Livermore, California.
Oh,
and
really?
So we take our message to the families because that's where we have access to them. So people that attend these events are invited to come up to the plane. The kids are invited to paint the aircraft with paint, and we ask them to paint, whatever it is they love, what they love to do, what their dreams are, anything on the plane.
Really?
And then that gives us the opportunity to talk to the kids and the parents together. So the parents get this information, and then the kids get a little card to take with them and remember, and the parents get all the information they might need.
Wow.
And hopefully they've had some fun doing it.
Yeah. So you have these events throughout the year, or over the years.
Since 2014 is when we started painting the plane.
Wow.
So 60 times since then.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
And I was reading about there's some scholarships involved in this. Talk about that.
The scholarships are relatively new. We have been collaborating with an organization, an educational organization. The acronym is CASWA. And the state of California is divided into regions, and those regions support the people who work in education and provide student services to youth. And so we've been working with them. They do an annual scholarship for students across the state, up and down the state, and so we've added a scholarship to what they offer.
Okay.
So any young person who has basically overcome those challenges in their life, often with a family member, a parent maybe,
right,
and it's been very challenging for them to get through school, and so we offer a scholarship for them to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's such a great idea.
So say they can go on and, go to a college or go to a job or whatever they need to do next. We give them a little boost because they've really done something incredible to be able to make it through that.
Right, and overcome that.
Yeah.
So SafeLaunch.org is the website, and people people can give, people can attend events. How are you supported, like kind of overall?
Well, we are just privately funded by donors.
Okay.
So 100% we'd love people to go onto the website.
Yeah.
We also have a membership opportunity so people can be a part of the solution with us for a monthly donation of $5 to $15 or whatever they want to give.
Yeah.
Or just a one-time donation. We also ask businesses to support us. We've got local businesses that are listed on our website.
Nice.
Yeah. So we're it's gone well for us, but we always need more support because we can't do enough.
Right. This is a big thing you're
Huge.
trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We say it's time to start to stop the disease of addiction.
Right.
Right.
Oh,
We've got to begin.
Yeah, I never knew that information myself. I mean, I never knew that in terms of the age of developing brain that starting early has that kind of power in terms of the long-term disease that is addiction. But that's the message that needs to get out. I mean, my goodness, that's important for parents to know.
It is, and it'd be really important for schools to know.
Right.
Getting information into schools is, a challenge.
Right.
Just to say, because curriculum and, time and all the other things that are going on in schools, particularly where the message needs to go is like 5th and 6th grade. So it needs to come before they make that launch into junior high.
Yeah. Right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, and it's a great answer to the question. I mean, a lot of young people, I think ask and ask their parents, when they're talking about drinking, let's say at a party, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. It's so to the friends that we all have who think that it's better to have your kids drink at home than not, I would just offer kind of a thought experiment for them. Do you know the background of all of the friends that you're having over to your house? Do you know that they have no addiction in their family?
Right.
That child isn't already predisposed?
Right.
And so when you invite them over, you could be changing their life forever.
Right.
And I sure wouldn't want to be responsible for doing that.
Right.
So,
Right.
people think they're doing the right things sometimes, and maybe they just need to think about it again.
Yeah.
With some new information.
Right. That's right. That's more important than being the cool parent.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Health, freedom, life,
Yeah.
safe launch.
Exactly.
SafeLaunch, everybody. SafeLaunch.org is the website. Janet Rouse has been my guest. This is very wonderful, a great vision. Encourage you to support this in helping our youth. This is a real way to help launch our youth in a way that is safe and in a way that gives them every opportunity to have a good life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for what you're doing.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you next time.